Hi everyone. I would like to walk you through some of our assessment tools today so that you can use this more effectively with your 2Ts. I know there's a lot of information in this module, and it's hard to get everything from your reading. So I just want to take you through the process of doing assessment, and just know that assessment is also an ongoing process. And there's many different types of assessment that we can do. But one of the things you want to do with your 2T early on is just get a preliminary assessment of their reading. And so this exercise and this activity will help to introduce you to some of that. So why are we doing this? Well, reading levels really matter, and you're going to see that as we read more about different aspects of reading as we go through the course. But reading levels are very important as you work with your 2T, and they always kind of form the foundation of how effective your work is going to be. So just for now, know that the reading level, the reader's level at which they're reading and the text that you're working on should be in alignment with each other. And so you should always be trying to work at finding the text at the appropriate level for your learners. Well, what do we mean by levels? There's three different kinds of levels that we talk about for any learner. One is an independent level, and the independent level just refers to the level of text. Usually with text we talk about first grade, second grade, third grade, that kind of thing. Which level is easy for your learner? So for example, for a first grade learner, is a first grade level their independent level or not? So are they reading independently at the first grade level, or are they reading independently at the kindergarten level? So that's just an example. This is an easy text for your student to read. Then the instructional level is a level that is slightly challenging for your student. So you would say, like, for the student we just talked about, maybe kindergarten is their independent level, and maybe a first grade level text is their instructional level, so they can handle it with some support. So it's a level that's slightly challenging for students, but they can handle it with some support from the teacher. Frustration level is a text that's too hard for your student. So the student we just talked about, second grade level, would be too hard for them. That would be a frustration level. Probably even middle first grade levels would be too hard for that student. So that's called frustration level because it's just too frustrating. The only exception is, sometimes learners find a text that they really love, or a topic that they know a lot about, in which case maybe they can handle reading it, or maybe they're super motivated. So frustration level text, sometimes they can work at their frustration level if they really know a lot or are very motivated to learn it. So that's what we're usually talking about. Independent, what is their independent level? And when we ask that question, what is their independent level, we usually give a grade level to indicate the level of text that they can read independently. So I would say, for example, this student's independent level is kinder, for example. Okay, so grade levels. Now, you just heard me talking about independent levels and grade levels. We're going to get into more detail about text leveling next week, but reading texts like a book or a text that someone will read is usually we indicate in terms of grade level. So like we talk about first grade level texts or second grade level texts. These levels are based on native speakers of English in American schools who are doing well in school. So they're reading at the ideal level for their grade. That's what we call it, a first grade, a second grade, or a third grade level. But we want to remember that we are working with English learners, not native speakers in regular schools. So for English learners, I think it's obvious, but maybe not so much, that these grade-based categories are not usually relevant. Just because someone's in second grade if they're an English learner, it doesn't mean they're reading the same as a native speaker of English in second grade. Otherwise, they wouldn't be English learners. They'd be fluent in English, and we wouldn't need to be working with them. Um, so even native speakers many times are not reading at grade level. So even native speakers in fifth grade are not always reading at a fifth grade reading level. So these are like ideal reading levels for native speakers who are doing well. So we need to find out our learners' actual reading level. We can't assume that just because they're in second grade that they're reading second grade level texts. So it may be confusing, but text levels and reading levels are often referred to using those first grade, second grade, third grade level terms as a way of understanding the complexity and sophistication of a text. So texts get harder as you go up the grade levels, okay? But I don't want you to be confused by the fact that something's referred to as fifth grade level, for example, and your fifth grader is not reading anywhere near that, for example. So this doesn't mean that an 11-year-old English learner in fifth grade will or even should necessarily be reading at a fifth grade level in English. They're still learning the language. And furthermore, something that I think a lot of people don't realize is that just because you have a very advanced L2 reader and they're studying in college, that doesn't mean they are reading at a university level. A 12th grade level is extremely sophisticated, and even a lot of native speakers can't handle a 12th grade level or can't handle it easily. So even very advanced college level learners do not assume that they're reading above a 12th grade level. I would be very surprised. And if that's the case, then again, how are they different from a native speaker? And do they really need help with their reading? So that's what you want to think about as you're testing these levels. Don't assume that just because they're of a certain age or of a certain education level that they're necessarily matching up with these grade levels of texts. So what do we need to do to find out? We have to engage in assessment in order to find out the actual levels that are best for our students to work on. And again, many of these assessments are created for native speakers. So working with non-native speakers, we have to be sensitive to the fact that the test may not be appropriate exactly for their particular needs as L2 learners. So we're going to walk you through some of those ways of adapting. Okay, so what we need to do is take the tools and triangulate information in order to find out the levels of our students. Unless you have access to these online tests that really level the students, which are also designed for native speakers, by the way, so they may have problems with your non-native speakers. Basically, barring that, you need to triangulate and come up with several pieces of information and bring it together to find out what level your learner is going to be at. The first one, we're going to use a real quick assessment, San Diego quick assessment, just to get a general idea of what words are easy and hard for your learners. This is not a very accurate assessment. It's not considered the most valid assessment, but as you're just a tutor and you have a short time with your student, we want to use the tools that are quick and easy to use and will give you a general sense that you can then build on to find out what actual level your students are at. Another tool very similar to that is the core graded high frequency words, and that one is again rough and tumble, but it will give you some information to compare to the San Diego quick so that you can sort of average the two or find out what's going on between those two. And finally, after you do those two, that's when you get a text at the level that you think your learner is at based on that information, and you do sit down with them and read through the text and see how they're doing. That's a running record. The oral reading fluency in our readings is also similar to this. So we're looking at, you know, how well your student actually reads that text once you've decided which age level. And you may need to go up or down the scale a little bit once you actually work with them. Maybe the San Diego Quick Assessment, I've seen this happen before where a student really struggled with the San Diego Quick Assessment, but they were actually reading at a much higher level. So their tutor had to, go up levels as they read with them in a running record till they found a level that was more challenging for them. So again, be ready for this kind of ongoing process of triangulating where your student is at. Okay, let's look at the San Diego Quick Assessment. Let's start with that. In your core assessment excerpts, you have the San Diego Quick Assessment on page 13. This is a set of lists that you're going to go through with your student. And basically here is independent level, instructional level, and frustration levels that we just talked about. Now you have to start somewhere, and so maybe you have an idea, this is an intermediate learner or an advanced learner, maybe this is a brand new learner. So you might start out with an idea of where you think they might be reading, and you want to start 2 grades below that. So let's say my English learner is in 5th grade, 11-year-old, let's say. And I know that 5th grader's not reading at grade level. Maybe their parent told me, or maybe their teacher told me. Maybe I just know because I know English learners, if they are still in the process of learning English, they're not likely to be reading at grade level. They still need to work on a lot of things to get to grade level. So maybe I can say, okay, this is a 5th grader. Maybe they're reading at grade 3. So maybe I'm guessing maybe they're reading at grade 3. So I'm going to have them start with the list in grade 1. And what you do is you sit down with the student, you have a list in front of you, and they have a list in front of them. There's actually a separate list that's just for students, which I will upload for you guys. I didn't realize that you didn't have that. So there's a separate list for just for the students. It doesn't have all the grades written. So go through that, go through the list, and as they read down the list, you have to mark here how many they got correct. So one way to do it is to put a check when they get it correct and an X when they get it incorrect. So if the student reads road, live, thank, when, Bijur, for example, Bijur, I would put an X. So you have to mark it down as you go. And then in this list, you count the number of errors. Okay, let's back up a bit. What is an error? Now, if this is just the student's accent or dialect, right, that this is how they pronounce it in their accent, non-native accent, you don't count that as an error. We're not assessing their pronunciation, right? So for example, if many Japanese students have a difficulty distinguishing R and L in English, and that's just an accent. It's most people, even the most advanced learners, will make that same pronunciation error, but that doesn't mean that they don't know the difference between words that have those two sounds. So for example, if that learner said load instead of road, I wouldn't mark it wrong. That's part of their accent, okay? And so if they said riv instead of live, again, it's part of their accent. But if they said, for example, raw ad, right, or law ad, then I know they don't know that word. They're getting that word wrong, okay? So we're looking for words that they're making errors on, that they actually do not know the word. You can tell when they read it. Okay, and you count the number of errors down here. So how many did they get wrong? Then you move to the next list, grade 2, counting the number of words correct and the number of errors. You mark it right here, and so on. So 1 error is independent level, 2 errors is instructional level, and 3 errors is frustration level. So once you get to a list where they make 3 or more errors, then you stop. So for example, if on grade 3, if the learner made 3 errors, then you would say, okay, thank you, and that's enough. And you would know that grade 3, up here you would write frustration level, grade 3, right here. And maybe instructional level was grade 2, and maybe independent level was grade 1. Meaning, how many errors did they make on each of those lists? And you write the level of the list up here. So in other words, what we're saying is independent level is grade 1, instructional level is grade 2, and frustration level is grade 3. So you write it on the form. Okay, so that is the San Diego Quick Assessment. Now let's move to the core graded high frequency word survey. This is very similar. It's a set of lists, right? And list K is kindergarten, list 1 is first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade. So if your student tested above fourth grade, then you're not going to be able to use this one, so don't worry about it. But if your learner tested, like, let's say 5th grade or below, then you want to triangulate it with this list as well. So let's say they were reading independent level 5th grade on the other list. Give them this list as well. Come and maybe try to give them list 4 and just see how they do on it. So again, it's similar. You have them read down the list, and you mark check or X next to each word, and you count the number correct on this one. It's different. The other one was errors. This one's counting the number correct, okay? And the way this form works is right here, you can interpret it this way. On lists 1 through 4, there are 24 items. So if they got more than 21 correct, that's called benchmark level. And benchmark is similar to the independent reading level on the other list. If they got 18 to 20 correct, that's their strategic level. And if they got 0 to 17 correct, that's an intensive level. So benchmark is similar to independent, strategic is similar to instructional, and intensive is similar to frustration level. So what you would do up here on the list, let's say they got 21 correct, then you would mark benchmark level. So you just compare it to that set of levels that I just showed you, and you mark based on the number correct, is this their benchmark level, their strategic level, or their intensive level? Okay, and then you get a sense, how does this match with what you got on the San Diego Quick Assessment? Okay, we're going to practice doing a San Diego Quick Assessment in the next part of this activity. So I suggest that you print out the list of the San Diego Quick Assessment. You can just print out that page and follow along as we move to the next part of the video.